Hi, it's Matt from Modernised Electronics, and we're very pleased to announce an upcoming release of MEITE. We've been working on it for a few months now, and it includes a whole array of fixes and improvements to our tuning software. It doesn't encompass changes to the ECU itself, so firmware updates and different control strategies, which we're currently working on as well. It's purely the tuning and the software that you actually use to modify our ECUs itself. So without further ado, let's jump in and go through a few sections here. Okay, so first of all, you can see it's a complete reskin, a complete redesign. It looks a lot nicer, a lot more modern, with a dark theme loaded here. We can see things like the drivers. We've changed sort of a property grid style, so it's a lot easier to navigate the drivers. And you can also see now that at the bottom here, you can see a sort of quick tip as to what's going on with each thing. So we can click on it and see, what that function might do. And obviously also here, you can jump into the main manual if you want to read more. Another thing we've added is a permanent live dash to the bottom. So between tabs, you used to have DROs for each thing, but now we have a standard set of cards down the bottom. You can reorganize these cards, you can drag and drop, you can actually change and edit what's on here, making them large cards or small cards. So a nice permanent setup here to see what's going on in any ECU that you happen to connect to. In terms of digital readouts as well, we've also added this background histogram view, which you can enable or disable in the DRO rolling trace. And it enables, when any DRO changes, it's going to plot and update a histogram. It allows you to capture things like spikes happening. It auto scales to max and min as well as data comes in. It's just a nice way of being able to see, exactly what's going on historically in real time for quick sort of tuning and, what was that moment. Also, in terms of DROs, you can still just simply add them by double clicking on an item in the graph here, or you can right click, add DRO, and a pop-up comes up here where you can scroll through and search all the different ones like injection-based pulse width, and there we go, it's added there. One thing that I showed there as well was 3D view has been revolutionized with zoom, mouse, better overall look, style and feel, and the same goes for the grid view. And we've also added smoothing and push-pull. So if I change this to 0, it works like the old MEITE where it would only edit that cell as I press Q and W. But if I increase this to say maybe 2, it will also pull up and pull down the cells around it. It's easier to see in 3D. So if I click here, I can pull those cells up and down smoothly. I can also select these cells and then I can hold E to actually smooth them and average them out. If I keep pressing E lots of times, you'll see that that hole in the map that was there has now been smoothed out and gone. We've also changed the style of our 1D views to match that sort of more modern look. Again, dragging and dropping as you see fit. One thing we've changed for our people that tune with ethanol and so on is the ability to work now in lambda rather than AFR. To do so, simply go to View and then Fuel Ratio Units. Obviously set your stoic AFR first, the number for the fuel you're using, and press lambda, and you'll see all the readouts then work as lambda numbers, which some people prefer for tuning. I personally work in AFR, but it depends. If you're mapping a lot of ethanol, which has a different AFR, then lambda can be very useful for that. Okay, another feature we have added is the warning center on the right. So currently the ECU is disconnected. So I'm doing this to show you what happens when we connect. So if I now connect to the ECU here, you see all of these warnings. Now these will disappear because they're normal status updates. They will, after a few seconds, disappear. But we're left with these permanent warnings. And that's because our sensors are outside of the standard range. We can, of course, clear these away, so they disappear. But any state change, if we lose sync, if we have a knock event, will pop up as a warning. If we go to File and Settings, we can see in here how we can adjust different warnings and different thresholds for any of our alarms we want. And obviously, these are all the parameters within the ECU. And you can build this up as you see fit, and they are saved between loads. Another thing we've been working on quite heavily is the auto tune. And we've gone for a more professional approach rather than something that just edits the table in real time, because that can run away from itself. It cannot compensate for different transients and so on. So we've built a review-based editor. If we go to tuning a system, Now, the ECU itself is always recording historic data. It's always recording about 2 minutes of history all the time. And we can use that with this bar down here to replay live through the ECU, or we can use it for tuning. We can also load a log file, but we'll look at that in a second. But if I do an analyze, we will see that this ECU is looking at the last history. It can see that we've been mostly sitting here because we have no engine running. And it's saying, look, the target AFR is slightly leaner than what we're currently reading, which is obviously made up, but it's still showing how it works. What I'm going to do is actually I'm going to load a full historical log. It picks out the columns within the log that it's going to use, and we load that in and press analyze. We can now see the various changes it thinks we should make to our fuel map. So we can see that in this area it wants us to richen the mixture slightly, and in this area it wants us to lean the mixture. You can see here that it has these green dots represent a high confidence. It means it's had a lot of time hitting that cell and it has a high confidence that those changes should take place. And we can see these grayed out cells, it doesn't have much confidence in those areas. Okay. Now, we might say, look, we're happy with our sort of idle low load areas, but really we want to apply these changes that we've recorded here based on our lambda feedback to our fuel map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the brush mode here, and I'm going to paint on the areas I'd like to actually send through to my VE table. So I'm trying to send all those areas through there. And if I now press apply paint, if I move over here and press apply painted, you'll see how these cells actually change. There you go. You can see it's applied those changes from that log file. So a very easy way of adjusting a tune based on either a log file that you've carried out from logging or from the immediate history recorded perhaps after a brief 2-minute drive cycle. One other area we've worked on is a enhanced log viewer built into the actual software itself. So if we go to logging and log reviewer, we can see here that we can either look at the current history that's on the ECU, for example there, which shows the last 2 minutes of data, or we can actually import a CSV file in entirety, for example this one. Let's open. And we can go through, we can do things like manage the groups on here to tidy things up. Perhaps we want less on here. You can see it's added the plot from both, so we can remove plots as well. But we can see the various things that it's brought in from that log file, as well as some statistics down here and some events, which are quite handy for diagnosis. We can see, for example, the boost GPT trim was unchanged for 50 consecutive samples, so something's gone wrong there. And you can see that the equivalent load isn't changing. You can see rapid changes occurring, spikes and so on. So it's very useful to quickly pinpoint areas in the map. We can also add markers, so we can do a difference comparison between 2 different points within the history. And obviously we can zoom around and look around at the various parts of the log file that have been loaded. Another big feature request was the ability to undo changes, which we now have. So if we jump into our, for example, our 2D mode here, if we make some changes to this field, some changes to here, and maybe some changes down here, if we press Ctrl Z, it will roll back those changes, and we can also redo them if we see fit as well. So a nice, easy way of going back and undoing any changes you make to the configuration of the ECU. We've also improved grid snapping of our DROs. So now you can simply drag a DRO around and it will try and snap to one that's in line with it, making it a lot easier to style your layouts across different pages. And you can also add channels to a DRO, for example, make this with A delta as well. And you can build multi-channel DROs, which are quite useful if you're building a certain custom layout for tuning certain areas of the engine. So I hope that's a nice update. We'll be adding the new software to our website very shortly. And if you'd like to be involved in beta testing and giving us some straightforward feedback, please feel free to comment on the video. We can create, a smaller group for just purely detailing this beta testing of this new version of MEITE. I know Alex is busy working on some more algorithms for boost control and drive-by-wire tuning and so on. So we're looking forward to seeing those as well. But yeah, keep in touch, guys, and we look forward to working with you. Cheers.